Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment on The Weekend Show. The 2023 elections brought in a lot of interesting conversations, but it also expanded the political landscape in Nigeria. One of the major actors in the 2023 elections was the new Nigerian People's Party, which were able to win a governorship seat in Kano State and also some positions in the National Assembly. But in politics and political parties, controversies always exist. And like some other parties, you have different factions. Joining us on today's episode, we have the factional national chairman of the NNPP, Dr. Agbo Major. Welcome to the Weekend Show.
Thank you so much. Good morning, viewers. It's good to be here, but I think I shouldn't be referred to as factional
And I knew
chairman.
you were going to say that,
Yeah,
but
certainly.
and I said that intentionally so that you'll clarify
Oh,
that.
yes, why not?
So please, why do you think you shouldn't be referred to as a factional chairman?
Well, from the outside, a lot of people do not understand how the internal workings of a political party is. Every party and its operations are guided by the provisions of its constitution, and the constitution of the party has vested on me, the authority to lead the party as the national chairman as we speak now, not even acting, not even factional, like you're trying to say. Recently, it's a very long story, but after the election, it's normal that after every election, there are realignments, parties are repositioned and all of that. And we had series of meetings, series of consultations. All the organs met shortly after the election. The BOT that has the sole right to ensure that the party is stable also had their meeting, and in their wisdom, and based on the provisions of the constitution of the party, they decided to invoke certain relevant sections of the constitution, which gives them the power, to make appointments, to discipline, to remove from office, to call to order, and also to make appointments. And those were the powers they invoked clearly on the 29th of August at their extraordinary meeting in Rockview Hotel in Lagos. And that gave birth to the NWC, which I presently lead. Effectively, the era of Abakawu ended that day because, as we speak now, they are no longer members of our party. They've all been expelled, including the immediate past presidential candidate, His Excellency Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso.
Well, before we even get to that, human life and security is extremely important. And in what you do, there are constant threats and risk. And I read recently where you mentioned that there was an attempt on your life.
Yeah.
Is there any truth to this?
Oh, yes. It's politics. Once anybody's personal interests are threatened, it becomes an issue. I discovered that in the course of trying to reposition the party, in the course of trying to ensure that the party is brought back to where it was before they invaded it, in the course of trying to ensure that things are put in their proper shape, I became an endangered species. But they never had their way because this is a party that we formed over 22 years ago and which has been relatively stable until they came. And God, the way he does his things, he ensured that nothing happened to me. I was seated in our new office in Nuse Zone 4 when two people walked in with a shotgun. And I think what happened was that I had left my seat. If I was on the seat, the story would have been different. But I had left my seat. And they were not even smart enough because, when you're going after somebody, you need to do some extra work on him. One, anywhere you see him, you should be able to identify him with ease and all of that. But I discovered that they had a lot of inadequacies in that direction. So when they walked in, I wasn't on the seat. They saw that my seat was empty. And they were asking me of Major Agbo. Meanwhile, they were asking Major Agbo of Major Agbo. And that gave me the conviction that they actually didn't do enough work on me to be able to identify me with ease. But in a way, too, you could also see that it could also be interpreted from the angle that maybe God didn't want them to get at me. Confusion may have set in. God works in supernatural ways, So I really cannot explain what happened, but only God knows. But there was a clear attempt on my life. And even as we speak now, every day I am faced with a lot of threats. But I'm not bothered because I know I'm on the path of truth and justice as far as the party is concerned.
The NNPP has a huge I want to call it a fan base. They have a huge set of loyalists. Do you think that it's as a result of the expulsion of the NWC and the presidential candidate that you are being faced with all of these threats?
Well, you recall that we've tried to do a short history of how they came in. Kwankwaso and his Kwankwasia group with his TNM, they came in March last year. And they found out that they had gotten a home because of the nature and character of the people they met. Myself, and then the founder of the party, who is Dr. Boniface Okechukwu. They saw that these are easygoing people. They didn't know that along the way it could be dangerous, when you have to begin to take advantage of the nature, the kind nature of the people you meet, And so they came with a clear agenda to hijack the party, But when we noticed it and we discovered that it was a clear mission, not only to destabilize the old structure they met, but to inject what they came in with, which is not in the interest of the party, and then subsequently hijack it. We now felt that we needed to do what was right, which is to resist them. And since then, we've resisted them. But the good thing is that the instrument that brought them, the memorandum of understanding that we signed, where it was expressly and clearly stated that they were coming in just because they needed a platform to be able to prosecute their election agenda and ambitions, and that the strength and veracity of the MOU was going to terminate immediately after the election. What we did was that we were so proactive. Before the election, we noticed their agenda, but we didn't want to destabilize the polity. We just felt that what we needed to do was to continue to manage them until such a time that the elections are over, so that we don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. But when the elections were over, we simply said, okay, gentlemen, the game is over. Your stay is now no longer useful because the instrument that brought us together, that established the marriage, has ceased to exist and all of that. And so that has been the situation. So they are not comfortable with it because the agenda that they came in with, which is to hijack the party, we were proactive enough to have discovered that that was what they wanted. And we did everything possible to ensure that we warded them off. And today they are feeling badly wounded that they were not able to actualize that very nefarious agenda that they came in with, which was to take a structure that was benevolently donated to them for the purpose of the election, a structure they knew nothing about, a structure that had existed for about 21 years before they came in. But that's the situation. So, like I said, God is always on the path of the truth. We are focused. They will continue to try. But I can assure you that nothing is happening. We're moving on. As I speak to you now, the North Central Caucus of the party is meeting today in its extraordinary meeting at our office in Zone 4. And after that, they would issue all relevant statements that they need to issue and all of that. The other zones have met. The Southwest have met to galvanize the old structure, which they destabilized, out of greed. They have met. The Southwest have met. The South-South have met. The Northwest have met. What is left is North Central, which is meeting today. And then after that, we'll conclude with the Northeast. So the entire old structure is being galvanized. They are coming back. They are keying in. A lot of them left out of disappointment. And you can see what even the Northern youths are saying now, that the hands of fellowship that we've been trying to extend to our Igbo brothers across the Niger is what they have come to destabilize, because that's mutual suspicion that has existed after the end of the Civil War, which we'll be trying to build on to ensure that we're able to put ourselves together and begin to see ourselves as brothers and sisters again, was what guided Dr. Anebunam in taking that decision, to extend that hands of brotherhood and fellowship across to Kwankwaso. But you can see what has happened. And that's why the Northern youth cried out in Ariwa House about 48 hours ago to say, no, a relationship that we're trying to rebuild, you are coming to destroy it by, refusing to remain sticked with the tenets of a gentleman agreement that you had reached with an Igbo man who ordinarily was not supposed to have done what he did, but because of his benevolent nature, he said, okay, let us move on and all of that. And that's the relationship we are destroying. You are pulling us back. That's why the Northerners are now crying. But I can assure you that all is not lost. The relationship is there. We will continue to build on it. And we are assuring the Northern youths that By the time these people are cleared off the way, we'll be able to begin to look at ourselves eyeball to eyeball to begin to define how we can move on as brothers.
I read a news article where it was reported that about 26 northern political elders, and mostly in Kano State, had left the NNPP to the APC. Is this something you are familiar with? And also, you started by saying you're not a factional chairman.
I'm
You
not.
are the chairman. Does INEC recognize your current setup as it is?
Well, it's an opportunity for me to educate viewers. One mistake that we keep making is that if you go through the entire Electoral Act and even the Constitution, you discover that there are no parts of it that says that INEC is obliged, to be directly involved in the internal workings of political parties. What INEC does is that at every point in time, whatever is in their records is what they work with. The convention that was held in 2022 that produced Alkali, who also left the party, Professor Alkali, who left the party for APC out of frustration because they didn't allow him to operate freely as a Democrat. That convention, as I speak to you, that's the records that is still with INEC. The extraordinary meeting that the BOT had, INEC was not under any obligation to attend. What is expected is that the party sits down, takes care of its internal issues, and then reports to INEC. And that has been done. And as I talk to you now, in the next couple of days, we expect INEC, maybe through the instrumentality of the law or whatever, to change their records to reflect my own NWC, which I lead. So the way the parties works, which we have to let people know, is that INEC does not determine who is chairman of a party or who is secretary of a party or who is publicity secretary or whatever. What it does is that what is the record available to us at this moment? And if it has changed, how did it change? And if it has changed, furnish us with what you now have and tell us this is the situation. And then the records are bound to be changed and all of that. So the issue as to whether INEC is working with us or not, that is not the issue now. The issue is that the party is responsible for its internal workings, and it has taken the decision. And INEC is obliged to, stick to those decisions.
As much as you say INEC isn't involved in the day-to-day running of the party and its decisions, we've seen it have larger impacts where, in some cases, you have multiple primaries. So in case of what's happening in Plateau State at the moment with the PDP, and a lot of them are losing their seats because of how the primaries were conducted or the lack of it. This happens when you have factions or when you have disagreements within the party. So even if INEC isn't involved, it plays a major role in crediting or discrediting your party. And so if primaries are conducted for an election today and your side has its primaries and the other side has theirs, how does that help the party?
I think I need to let you know that the other side you are talking about is only just existing. I noticed that sometimes they appear in the media and all of that. These are things that politicians are known for. They are normal antics that politicians are known for. Of course, nobody goes down like that without having to struggle. But inside them, they know that they are gone and gone for good. And like I said, what is our overall interest? Our overall interest is the stability of the party. How does the party operate? The party operates locally within itself without any interference from INEC or anywhere. It is the records presented to INEC that they work with. So the issue of multiple primaries and all of that, yes, it goes to show that when people are desperate, which is like the situation you are trying to explain now, ordinarily these people are supposed to, as people who have copies of the constitution of the party with them, what they are supposed to do is to say, okay, it is clear that we are gone. Let us just allow this party to be peaceful and all of that. But in their usual style, and in the usual style of people who call themselves politicians and all of that, they would continue to struggle. But I can tell you that what is required to, directly position the party, as far as INEC's records are concerned, is already in the pipeline. And so in the next few days, I'm sure that you will have no reason to, even look at their side or to say, okay, come and talk to us and all of that, or even to go out of your way to refer to me as a factional chairman and all of that. So don't be bothered with that. I can tell you that parties work without interference from INEC. INEC is just a mere, supervisory body. Their job is to see what the parties do. They don't determine what the parties do. They only come to see what the parties do, how it organizes itself, and so on and so forth, and they are aware of that. So the issue of multiple primaries or whatever, which are your fears now, apart from the fact that there are no elections coming up, at least within the next few weeks, within which we know that these things would have been sorted out. But even if there were to be any elections coming up, I can tell you that INEC would do what they need to do, which is to take records of the primaries from the appropriate side. We have furnished them elaborately, making specific references to specific sections of the Constitution. And we have also gotten the courts to look at it and to also get them to understand that this is the way to go and all of that. And in the next few days, these things will be straightened out.
Now that you've established this, do you see any room for reconciliation between both parties?
Well, time is running out. Initially, this problem started around August, when they went out of their way to, attempt to kill the constitution of the party by pronouncing expulsion on somebody that the Constitution says you can't even suspend for 1 minute. The same Constitution that we're operating, that says the founder of the party is a live member of the board. The implication is that even for 1 minute, you can't suspend him. But you come to think of it out of selfishness, or maybe due to them not having deep understanding of how parties work or how the Constitution of a party should operate and all of that. They went out of their way to jettison the provisions of the Constitution to do what they did. And the man in his nature opened the doors for discussions. But we discovered that they were not prepared to discuss. Of course, Dr. Nebunam never gave any reason why he needed to meet with the NWC, the then NWC. There was no reason for him to meet with them. But he was prepared to meet with the then leader of the party and presidential candidate of the party, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. But when we discovered that they were not interested, and we now saw that all their agenda is, okay, let us see how we can destroy this whole thing and all of that. But so we now took our stand to that maybe what we need is also to take the hard way. And we have taken the hard way. So to react to your question directly, I don't think that there's any room. Of course, politicians will always sit down to talk, but the injuries are so much, these wounds cannot heal as fast as anybody would expect them to heal. The embarrassment, the insults on the person of Dr. Nebunam, I'm not talking about myself, is so massive that healing these wounds will be a very, very difficult task. And so, yes, if they come, we will talk, but our talking now would be determined by what we want as the fathers of the party, as the owners of the party. But in a way, too, I can tell you, it's not as if I am guaranteeing you that we're 100% ready for reconciliation. But as humans, as brothers, we can always talk and see if we can find a meeting ground. If there is a way that we could continue, fine, maybe in a better defined relationship, fine. If it is no longer workable, they are gone. Of course, the people I'm talking about are already expelled members of the party. So coming back is like coming to say, please, can we re-register? Going by the provisions of our Constitution and all of that. So that is the situation now. As politicians, we keep talking, we keep jojoing. Politicians will always disagree. Of course, the best decisions taken in politics are those taken after you have massively disagreed. So now we have sized ourselves up. We now know the strength of one another. And so if we are talking now, we'll be talking with mutual respect. And then we'll also be able to define clearly how we want to move on. So I'm not foreclosing completely the chances of talking, but I can tell you that the chances of talking is just about 15 to 20%. So it's slim.
Okay, so let's reel it into your party now. In recent times, we've seen judicial decisions come up, and I know you most likely would say this case is still in court, and so you may not speak about it, but your party stands the risk of losing its only governorship seat in the country at the moment as a result of the Election Petitions Tribunal decision and also the controversial appeal court decision which we saw last week, which has caused a bit of agitation. The courts had to instruct or prevent any protest between yesterday and today in Kano State. What is your party doing about that?
Well, it's not about us as a party. It's about the survival of our democracy. We're looking beyond what they are doing to us now. We're looking at the entire picture of this democracy that we're operating. Are we prepared to let it blossom? Are we prepared to let it grow? Are we prepared to move beyond where we are now? You know, what happens to A will always happen to B. A country of over 200 million people. Why will your dream be that everybody has to be with you? Why will your dream be that? We have continued to argue even when there were about 96 political parties or thereabout, or 91, under Tahiru Jaga. He took some out. Mahmoud came, registered again. And then after the general election of 2015, he deregistered some again on account that they were not able to win at least one seat, which is what is there in the Electoral Act and all of that. And today, we have just about 19 political parties, with the one that the court just recently compelled them to recognize. We were 18 in the just concluded election, but one just came in now through a court pronouncement. What will a country of over 200 million people do with 19 political parties? When in Benin Republic here, that is not up to FCT and Niger State put together, there are over 200 political parties. It's just the beauty of democracy is that people should have a wide array of choice. They should be free to move from wherever they feel their interests, which is the interest of the people, is not protected, to where they feel they should have the opportunity to be able to ventilate, which is the beauty of democracy. So we are not talking about what is happening to us now. We're worried about it because this is a product of about 22 years of intensive search for, elective seats. God brought this through the instrumentality and whatever of what we did in 2023 general election. And look at it, a mandate that was widely given, a mandate that was, people, even those who could not walk, people had to come out on wheelchairs to come and cast votes for His Excellency Abba Kabir Yusuf. And today, his seat is threatened. We are bothered about it. But like I said, the good thing is that if you see all the drama, you will know that, when God stands up to deal with the situation, he sets this kind of level of confusion in and then exposes those who are at the other side plotting evil against our democracy and all of that. So we are worried that the seat, the only governorship seat we have is threatened, but we're also worried that the entire democracy is threatened. I have this firm belief that Kano is so central, so crucial politically that if you allow it to become unstable, the entire polity is unstable. We're worried about the threats in Kano. We're worried about what is likely to happen when you vehemently and deliberately try to usurp the mandate of the people. The other day I was watching television and I saw one of them saying that you can come and kill all of us. That's to tell you how bitter they are. When the people, voters are now telling you, kill us. We will defend what we did on the election day. We are not going off the street until you kill us. That's to tell you that it's a situation where people are getting pushed to the wall. And so our sincere advice is that the right things should be done. I'm not here to cast any form of aspersions or any abusive whatever on the judiciary. I have firm belief in their ability to do what is right. The good thing is that there's still one more window, which is the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court can, in 1 minute or 1 second, do justice to this and then redeem the image of the lower courts that have taken these decisions that are clearly not in the interest of the good people of Kano and all of that. So let us look at our entire democracy, not just the case of Kano. Look at Plateau, for instance. Plateau is known for its volatility, always very volatile politically. And then you are doing this kind of thing. Look at the decisions taken there, and so on and so forth. This is the first time I'm getting to see that a trial court would do its job, and then a court of appeal that is simply supposed to work with the records of the trial court is coming to upturn things like this, you know. And it's worrisome because they are not a trial court. They are a court that are supposed to look at what has been done by the trial court. But that they go out of their way. Look at the case of Kano, for instance. Part of what the Court of Appeal came out with was that the governor is not a member of the party. Who determines who a member of a party is? The same CTC, the CTC they are talking about, that they are using, are CTCs that I'm very privy to. The governor's name is there. I can sit down here and quote his registration number. I can sit down here and quote the page where his name is and all of that. Why is the court coming to tell us as a party that the man is not a member of our party? I think it's a joke pushed too far, and it's not in the interest of our democracy. They need a rethink. The judiciary needs a rethink. We will continue to respect them. They are the hope of the common man, like we often say. We'll continue to respect them. But then the Supreme Court has to do the needful, which is to reverse all these decisions that have been taken, which we consider as decisions that are not objective, very, very subjective politically.
So, for our viewers, they would like to know, prior to appointment of ministers, the current president had a lot of engagements with several people. Now, your party, and this is commendable, is one of the top 4 parties in the country as it is today. What position is your party playing in this administration? Are you in support, or is it an opposition party?
Well, any party that is not in government is an opposition party. But what stands you out as an opposition party is whether your opposition style is constructive or not constructive. The problem we have in Africa generally, and Nigeria specifically, is that elections will always divide us. But after the elections, we allow the divisions to continue to fester. That's not democracy. No matter what, once a winner emerges from an election, what is expected is that everybody keys behind the winner, whether he emerged properly or not. That's not supposed to be an issue of worry to you. The country and its stability should be the issue. Yes, we had a series of engagements with the president, but the whole idea is, how do we guarantee the stability of our democracy? How do we move our country forward so that children are able to stay with to sleep in their hostels in schools with their eyes closed? You and I will be able to put fuel in our car to be able to drive from one point to the other. We'll also be able to feed our children with minimum difficulty and all of that. At that level, we have continued to engage with the president. And this was even before the election. Now, after the election, if you watch our style of criticism, we don't just come to say, you are this, you are that, you are not doing well, you are this, you are that. But we also try to tell you, if it were us, this is the way we would have done it. Like when the issue of removal of subsidy came, I spoke out loudly. I said that if it was an NNPP government, yes, there's nothing wrong with removing subsidy so that you'll be able to shore up money, to guarantee development of the country. There's nothing wrong with that. But it was not a decision that should have been taken on the first day of inception of that government. Look at the pains it has brought on us today. Today, look at the cost of fuel. And look at its spiraling effect, even on the cost of living, the cost of food. They will tell you, we use fuel to move this from this point to this. And so, do you know how much a cup of gari is in the market now? It is directly connected to the fuel wahala. So, in phases, in fact, I said that the first thing we would have done would have been, we all agree at a point that the subsidy regime was being mismanaged in the interest of a few persons and against the interest of the majority. Now, where were the leakages? The first thing would have been to try to determine if what was being churned out as what was used to service the subsidy was real. If it was not, maybe they tell you, okay, we use 3 trillion to subsidize fuel for so period of time. Did the 3 trillion go into it? If you do an inquiry into it and you discover that it didn't go in there, it was only 2 trillion that went in there, where did the 3 trillion go to? What you needed to have done, first you block that. Then you now return again to the 2 trillion and begin to look at how you can do. There is no part of the world where things are not subsidized. You go to even advanced democracies, there are setting so many essential social services that are subsidized. Electricity could be anything, and so on and so forth. Maybe even ordinary road infrastructures and all of that. In developed democracies, I'm talking about. But our own case, we abused it. Instead of us to investigate where the abuses were coming from, we never did that. We just woke up and said, we have removed it. And overnight, this is where we are today. I can tell you, my brother, that schools resumed in September. They are almost closing now. A lot of children were not able to go to school because their parents are even thinking of how to feed them, not to even talk of how to pay the school fees of the children, which had to rise because the schools needed to collect more money from the parents to be able to feed the children. So we have a long way to go. An NNPP government would have done better in that direction, but we are not the ones in power. We have continued to remind the government in power that our own style of opposition is constructive. We will try to offer our advice. We will identify the areas that things are not working well. We will try to advise in those directions. You are bound or unbound to take it, whether you want to take it or not, that's entirely your business. But history would be kind to us that we have continued to put advice on the table of the government. So we are in the opposition, but not the negative style of opposing.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
sharing your thoughts. That's the much we can take on today's episode of The Weekend Show. You can follow us on YouTube at Weekend Show NG and on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. My name is Andy Madaki. See you next week and have a blessed weekend.